Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Grab your seat because this story doesn't start with a wedding, a proposal, or even a sweet memory. It starts with a locked bathroom door, and a laugh I wasn't supposed to hear. It started with a laugh. Not the fake one she gives me during dinner. Not the polite one she uses with the neighbors. This was the one I hadn't heard in months. The kind that makes her shoulders shake. The one that used to be reserved for me. But I wasn't the one who said anything funny. She was in the bathroom with the door locked, getting ready. I was folding socks on the bed. Background noise of silence filled the house. And then I heard it. That laugh. Followed by a voice I didn't recognize, muffled, male, and very much on speakerphone. I didn't ask. I just sat there like an idiot, staring at a pair of rolled-up gym socks, while my stomach turned into a knot I couldn't untie. Minutes passed. Then the door opened and Marla stepped out in a short silver dress I'd never seen before. "I'll be out late," she said, avoiding eye contact. "Don't wait up." I didn't respond. Couldn't. My throat was tight, my chest even tighter. I just nodded. The door closed behind her. Her perfume lingered like the echo of a lie. 10 minutes later, a notification buzzed on the iPad. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. It was from her group chat, except she forgot to mute it. The preview read, "Girl, you seriously went through with it? Jackson?" She was at her ex's party. The one who used to write bad poetry on her arms with Sharpies. The one she told me was a lesson, not a person. The one who once showed up drunk to her birthday and tried to kiss her in front of her parents. And now she was back in his orbit. By choice. No fight. No dramatic storm out. No cheating reveal. Just a laugh behind a door, and a quiet decision to humiliate me in the most indirect, soul-slicing way possible. That night I didn't cry. I didn't scream into a pillow or call a friend to vent. I sat on the floor of the living room next to our wedding photo, and I stared at it until the frame didn't mean anything anymore. By the time she stumbled back through the door the next morning, mascara under her eyes and phone clutched like it held secrets, I was already done. But not in the way she expected. She thought she could play games. That I'd sulk, simmer, maybe yell. Instead, I handed her something. And the look on her face? That was the first honest thing between us in a long time. She didn't even notice at first. Marla walked in like nothing was wrong, tossing her jacket onto the couch, muttering something about how wild the night had been and how Jackson still can't mix drinks. She didn't realize I hadn't spoken. She didn't notice that our wedding photo was no longer hanging above the fireplace, or that her favorite mug, the one I got her in Vermont, wasn't on the kitchen shelf anymore. She walked past me, straight to the fridge, humming under her breath. Same old routine. Like I was just another part of the furniture. Like she hadn't just spent the night getting drunk with the guy who used to write songs about her neck. I was sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded. Calm. Too calm. She finally glanced over, eyes still glazed from whatever cocktail-soaked fantasy she'd been living in, and blinked. "You're up early." I didn't sleep. She looked uncomfortable for half a second, then recovered. "Well, don't be weird. Nothing happened. It was just a party. You're overreacting." That's when I slid the envelope across the table. She frowned. "What's this?" "My version of just a party." She opened it slowly, like she already knew she wouldn't like what was inside. First, the receipts. A one-way ticket to Colorado Springs for the following week. A lease agreement for a small apartment in my name only. And, on top of it all, a signed letter from a lawyer. Not divorce papers. Not yet. But a formal separation agreement drafted, reviewed, and ready. She didn't speak for a full minute. "You're joking," she said finally, with a weak laugh. "This is dramatic." "No, Marla. Dramatic is leaving your husband home alone to go flirt with your ex while pretending it's some innocent reunion. Dramatic is acting like your actions don't mean anything while I'm sitting here breaking into pieces. This," I pointed to the envelope, "this is me finally understanding that you don't want this marriage anymore. You just didn't want to say it out loud." Her face turned cold. She dropped the envelope like it burned. "So what, you're running away? Playing the victim?" "I didn't cheat, Lyle. Grow up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to say all the things I'd swallowed for months. The nights she turned her back on me in bed, the way she stopped laughing at my jokes, how every time she picked up her phone, I knew she wasn't texting me, but I didn't. I'm not running, I said, standing up. I'm walking away. There's a difference. She tried to follow me down the hall, saying it was a mistake, that she was just angry when she went to the party, that it didn't mean anything, that it was my fault for making her feel invisible. I didn't turn around. She had spent the night proving how little I mattered. Now it was my turn. By the time I reached the guest room, she was still behind me, still trying to explain the difference between cheating and making a statement. I didn't bother responding. She kept raising her voice, trying to get a reaction, but I stayed quiet. I wasn't interested in yelling. I was interested in showing her what quiet clarity really looked like. When I opened the guest room door, she froze. She hadn't noticed it yet. Not until I stepped aside and let her see what I had done. The closet was empty. Not a single shirt, tie, or sock left behind. The drawers, too. No trace of me. My things were already packed, gone. She blinked like she didn't understand what she was seeing. I moved out last night, I said plainly, while you were at the party. Her eyes darted around the room, trying to process it. Wait, what do you mean moved out? What about your stuff? Gone. All of it. While you were laughing at your ex's jokes and dancing with ghosts from your past. I was making sure this chapter of my life didn't follow me into the next. The silence that followed felt like glass shattering slowly. You know that moment right after you drop something fragile and before it hits the floor? That impossible stillness? That's what it felt like standing there, watching her try to find the right insult, the right weapon, the right manipulation to pull me back into her game. She failed. You're being ridiculous, she snapped finally. You're throwing everything away because I went to a stupid party? No, I said. I'm walking away because you needed me to see you with him. You wanted to hurt me. This wasn't about reconnecting with an old friend. It was about control, power, punishment. She flinched. You were never going to tell me what really happened last night, I continued. And I was never going to ask. That's the difference between us, Marla. You play dirty and then pretend it was clean. I stay quiet, but I finish what I start. She looked stunned, hurt maybe, or just shocked that the man she thought would always beg, always forgive, always sleep on the couch to keep the peace, was gone. Literally. She tried one last time to throw the guilt at me. So that's it? You're just going to vanish? No therapy? No fight? I looked her in the eye. You didn't want a husband, Marla. You wanted a spectator. And I refused to watch anymore. I left her standing in the guest room doorway as I stepped out into the hallway. The keys to the old car were already in my pocket. I had a bag in the trunk, a motel booked for the week, and a quiet plan to rebuild somewhere she couldn't follow. As I closed the door behind me, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow but free. No final word. No dramatic exit. Just a man who finally realized the value of his own silence. And it was deafening. 2 days. That's how long I managed to stay quiet. I was staying at a roadside motel just outside of town, the kind of place where the vending machine still sold root beer for $1 and the ceiling fan buzzed like a dying bee. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet, and for the first time in months, I could breathe without tiptoeing around someone's shifting moods. I thought I'd feel miserable, maybe even lonely, but what I felt, more than anything else, was relief. Then came the knock. Not on the motel door, but on the door of my mind, the one where suspicion creeps in and refuses to leave. A message popped up on my phone from an old friend, Clint, who worked in IT with me years ago and still followed Marla on social media, for some reason. Dude, did you see her Instagram story? Thought you guys were still together. I didn't want to look. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. And there it was. A boomerang clip of Marla spinning around in the silver dress from that night, glass in hand, grinning ear to ear as Jackson leaned in from behind her, flashing a peace sign like they were back in college. The caption, "Some people never change kiss mark." No tag, no explanation, just a smirk wrapped in pixels. That did something to me. Not rage, Not heartbreak. Something colder. Something sharp. I drove back. Not to fight. Not to plead. I just needed to collect a few things she'd missed when I cleared out. Some legal papers. A backup drive. And maybe, deep down, I wanted to see for myself if the woman I married had truly become the stranger she was pretending to be. She wasn't expecting me. Her car was in the driveway. The lights were on. And as I stepped inside, the house didn't even feel like mine anymore. She was sitting on the couch in a hoodie, hair in a bun, scrolling through her phone like the world wasn't burning down. When she saw me, she jumped. Not out of guilt, out of annoyance. You can't just walk in. I still have keys, I said flatly. I'm here for the drive in the desk drawer. She didn't respond, just folded her arms and waited like she wanted to turn this into some power play. That's when her phone lit up again. I didn't mean to look, but it was right there, face up on the coffee table. A name popped up, Jackson Wineglass. She noticed. Too late. Her hand snatched it quickly, but not before I saw the preview of the message. Can't stop thinking about last night. Time slowed. She stared at me like a deer in headlights, then shoved the phone into her hoodie pocket, as if that could erase what I just saw. It's not what it looks like, she began. I laughed. It was a sad, exhausted laugh, the kind that doesn't come from humor but from finally having nothing left to lose. Marla, I said quietly, you should have deleted that before I got here. She opened her mouth like she wanted to spin it, lie again, twist the story just enough to protect herself. But nothing came out. She just stood there, stuck between pride and panic. And that's when I did the one thing she never expected. I thanked her. For what? She asked, genuinely confused. For proving that leaving wasn't a mistake. Then I walked out, and this time, I took the key off my chain and dropped it on the kitchen counter. She didn't follow. But the story, that was far from over. I hadn't planned on seeing anyone who knew us. I thought if I kept my head down and avoided the places we used to go together, I'd be safe from reminders. But life has a funny way of pushing your face into the very thing you're trying to forget. I ran into Delilah, Marla's best friend, at the gas station of all places. She was standing by pump 3, arguing with the card reader. I pretended not to see her. She didn't pretend anything. Lyle? She called out, confused and cautious like I was some ghost from a headline she hadn't read yet. I gave a weak wave and nodded, hoping to end it there. But she jogged over, clutching a coffee and a set of keys with a furry pink keychain I remembered from a Vegas trip 4 years ago. I didn't know you were back in town. I never left, I said. Just moved across it. There was a beat of silence, the kind that hangs heavy when someone knows something they wish they didn't. She hesitated, then blurted out. She told me you were the one who walked out for no reason, that you just cracked and vanished. I blinked. That's the version she's telling people? She said you were having a breakdown, that you didn't trust her, that you were jealous of Jackson, and it drove you off the deep end. I laughed, but it didn't feel good. Did she also say she spent the night at her ex's house and lied to my face about it? Delilah froze. She looked around, then leaned in. She didn't say she stayed there, just said she went to the party. Swore nothing happened. Her phone says otherwise. Delilah's face changed, and that's when I saw it, that flicker of recognition. That tiny, involuntary twitch people get when they've been hiding something too long. What did she tell you, Delilah? I asked slowly. I'm not supposed to say anything. Then don't say anything. Just nod or shake your head. We stood there, cars passing, people fueling up like everything was normal. I looked her straight in the eyes. Did she sleep with him? She didn't nod. She didn't shake her head. She winced, and that was enough. I tried to talk her out of it, Delilah whispered, voice trembling. I told her this wasn't the way to punish someone. She said she didn't care, that she needed to feel wanted again, that you made her feel invisible. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs, not because I didn't expect it, but because the truth, even when it confirms what you already know, still hits like a punch you forgot to brace for. She said you were boring, Lyle, that you didn't make her feel anything anymore. I didn't respond. couldn't. I nodded slowly, thanked her, and walked back to my car with my keys shaking in my hand. Inside, I sat there for a full 5 minutes, staring at the steering wheel. My heart wasn't broken, it was silent. That kind of silence that creeps in after all the tears have dried up, after the shouting stops, and all that's left is the echo of what could have been. But it wasn't just about Marla anymore. I knew what I had to do next, and she was never going to see it coming. It's strange how betrayal doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in slowly, like cold water rising around your ankles. First you shiver, then you freeze, then you stop feeling anything at all. After hearing the truth from Delilah, I didn't yell, didn't confront, didn't call Marla to demand answers. She'd already given them, just not in words. Her story was in the silence, the smirks, the late-night messages, the way she stopped saying, "I love you," like she meant it. And now I had one goal: make sure she finally saw herself clearly, even if only for a moment. I didn't want revenge. Not the dramatic, movie kind. What I wanted was clarity. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, not through screaming or slammed doors, but through something much quieter, much colder. So I began planning the one thing Marla would never see coming: a goodbye dressed as a celebration. I created an event, just a small gathering, a reconnection dinner for old friends and mutual acquaintances. I made it look casual, harmless, hosted at a little restaurant we used to love before she decided she outgrew everything I touched. I sent out private invitations, made the guest list tight and selective. And yes, I sent one to Marla. The message was simple: hope you'll come. It's time we all sat down and had an honest meal. She responded within an hour. "You're finally talking to me again? What's this about?" I didn't reply. I left it hanging. I wanted her to feel off balance, unsure, because that's how I had felt for months. Questioning every look, every word, every late return home. I arrived early the night of the dinner, reserved the back table, quiet corner. I wore a simple button-up and brought nothing but a folder. Inside, copies of messages, a printed version of the separation agreement, and something Delilah had offered to me: a photo. Just one. Taken at the party. Marla, laughing in Jackson's lap. Mid-kiss. Not graphic, but undeniable. When she walked in, hair curled, lips red, dressed like she thought this was some kind of reunion. I saw it in her eyes. That flicker of confusion, followed by suspicion. She scanned the room, realized there were no guests, no group dinner. Just me. "What is this?" she asked, arms crossing. I slid the folder across the table. Dinner with the truth. She didn't open it immediately. She stared at it like it might bite her. Then, slowly, she lifted the flap and saw everything. The smile vanished. "This is low, Lyle," she said softly, eyes hardening. "No, Marla. What was low was spending the night with a man you once promised was part of your past, just to punish the man who was still standing by your side." She tried to speak, but I held up a hand. "I'm not here to argue. I just wanted you to sit across from me, one last time, and look at what you did. No filters, no half-truths, just the reality you created." She looked down, then back up, her mask faltering. "So what now?" I stood, collected the folder, and left a single envelope on the table. Inside was the final version of our separation documents, with her name signed. I had forged nothing. She'd signed them weeks ago, back when she said, "If you ever decide to leave, just send these." So I did. "I already left, Marla," I said. This dinner was just the receipt. I walked out without looking back. She didn't follow. This time, there was nothing left to say. It had been 2 weeks since the dinner. 2 quiet, weightless, breathably strange weeks. I'd started adjusting to the echo of my own space, to mornings where I didn't have to guess what mood she'd wake up in, or pretend I was okay with feeling like a stranger in my own marriage. I was sleeping better, eating more, even started jogging again, badly, awkwardly, like a baby deer on pavement, but still I was moving forward. Then she showed up. No call, no text, just a knock. When I opened the door to my small rental, I didn't expect to see her standing there. No makeup, No performance, just tear-streaked cheeks and a trembling jaw. She looked like she'd been crying for hours, maybe days. She was holding something in her hands. A crumpled photo, I realized. One of the ones we'd taken in Colorado years ago. I'd forgotten we even had prints of those. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice thin. I should have said no. I wanted to say no. But I stepped aside, watching her slowly move through the doorway like it hurt to breathe in the same air as me. She sat on the edge of the couch like it was foreign territory, clutching the photo. Her eyes darted around the room, taking in the blank walls, the half-unpacked boxes, the calendar still open to the wrong month. "I thought you were bluffing," she said finally, her voice cracking. I leaned against the kitchen counter, arms folded. "I wasn't." She nodded like she expected that answer. Then came the question I wasn't ready for. "Were you ever going to ask why I did it?" My stomach turned. I didn't want to play therapist for the woman who stomped on our vows. But part of me, some masochistic, hollowed-out part, needed to hear it. "Go ahead." She looked down at the photo. "I didn't cheat because I wanted Jackson. I didn't even enjoy being around him. That night was chaotic. I was drunk, stupid, and angry. I wanted to feel like I mattered again, like I was still worth someone chasing. And I was what, a roommate with a ring?" She winced. "You were always there, always steady, and I hated that I took that for granted. So I lashed out. Not because I didn't love you, but because I didn't know how to handle being loved by you when I didn't love myself." It was the most honest thing she'd said in years, maybe ever, and it made everything hurt worse. "You could have said that before crawling back into Jackson's arms." She nodded. "I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't know who I am without you." Those words hit harder than I'd like to admit, because I used to feel the same way. But not anymore. Not after the silence. Not after the photo. Not after hearing her best friend accidentally confirm the worst night of my life. "You'll figure it out," I said quietly. "But not here." She broke again. Tears flowed. Her hand reached out like it could rewind time if she just touched me one more time. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I believe you," I said. "But that doesn't mean I'll stay." She stood, wiped her face, and nodded. No begging. No last-ditch plea. Just quiet acceptance. As she reached the door, she turned back. "You really would have done anything for me, wouldn't you?" "I did," I said. "Right up until you gave me a reason to stop." She left without another word, leaving the photo on the coffee table. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. A month passed. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. No more late-night stomach knots, no more guessing games, no more pretending things were fine when they were rotting from the inside. My world didn't collapse after she left. It restructured. Slowly, quietly, honestly. I donated the photo she left behind. Not out of anger, but because I didn't need it anymore. Memories aren't always meant to be displayed. Some are meant to be learned from, buried, and used as fertilizer for something better. Marla never tried to come back after that night. She sent one final message. A simple thank you for being better than I deserved. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That chapter was finished. There was no cliffhanger. No post-credits scene. Just closure. The surprising part? I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry anymore. I realized that the version of her I loved didn't exist anymore. Maybe never did. And the version of me she walked away from? He wasn't coming back either. I'd grown in the silence. I'd become the kind of man who doesn't wait around to be chosen, who chooses himself first. I signed the papers, finalized the split, and then I did something I'd been putting off for too long. I booked a solo trip. Nowhere fancy. Just a quiet town by the coast where no one knew me, and the coffee shop didn't have Wi-Fi. I sat on the sand one morning, watching the tide come in, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's afterthought. I was just me, and that was enough. This story didn't end with revenge or rage. It ended with something rarer, release. Marla taught me a painful lesson, but it was one I needed. Love without respect is just a slow form of self-erasure. And healing starts the moment you decide you won't let someone else define your worth again. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. We want to hear from you. What part of the story hit you the hardest? Was it the laugh behind the bathroom door, the message from her ex, or the final goodbye that came without screaming? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever walked away from something toxic, let us know how it changed you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for another unbelievable true story.